Welcome to using UCCX Unified Intelligence Center. I'm Marty Griffin, Cisco Contact Center instructor from Sunset Learning Institute. This is part 2 of 5 presentations. Customizing stock reports will help you master simple customization of stock reports provided by Cisco. In this section, we'll discuss saving stock reports. In fact, stock reports cannot in themselves be customized. We must save a stock report into another location with another name, and then that report becomes customizable. So we'll talk about where to put them by creating report subfolders. We'll save and rename stock reports so that we can customize them, and we'll modify parameters for that report. We'll also modify a grid report, and we'll rename, delete, and move some of the column headers around. We'll add some thresholds, and we'll create a basic report from the ground up, and we'll group some reports together and create some new report headers. Other Cisco CUIC for UCCX videos include getting started with CUIC, creating dashboards, creating custom reports, and managing users and permissions. Look for them on the Cisco CC site at YouTube. Now let's get on with customizing stock reports. Here we've opened the CUIC administration page and open it up to reports. We would like a place to place our reports, and we'll make a special folder for that under reports there. A little right click here lets us create a subcategory here, and we will call that custom stock reports, not to lose sight of what they are. We'll give all users executable and write permissions for it, and sure enough, there's a new folder called custom stock reports. We would like to put a report in there, and the report we're going to use is the contact service queue activity report, and by itself and the way it runs, we can run this thing for just the sales folks. We can run this for skill groups, going through the parameters here, and we will run this for not today but for the entire month for the report interval. Let's take a look and see if that's what we want to save. And sure enough, there's a CSQ report for one CSQ. Okay, with that, let's do a save as, and we'll take that report now and call that the sales CSQ report, and sales CSQ, and we'll save that under reports. Let's save it under our custom stock reports, and sure enough, we'll hit OK on that. Now if I use these little tabs above us here, we'll go back to reports, and I notice that custom stock reports still does not have any reports in it, but over here it does. So simply refresh that page, and custom stock reports now has sales CSQ in there as a report. Let's just add these support people back into this report. Go ahead and run it, and in this case now the report will show 2 CSQ names, one for sales and one for support. This customer would like the word Q name here instead of CSQ name, so now we see the edit button here now is black, and we can climb onto that, and we're then exposed to showing the available fields and the current fields in order on the grid there. So we look at the very first field there is called CSQ name, and if I highlight that and do a right click, I'll find properties for that. Let me pull that back down here with us, and I see the display name is CSQ name and the grid display name is CSQ name, and what this customer would like is for us to call that the Q name, and we'll just click OK here, and that should work out just fine here. So we'll save that. and run that report now, and now this will be called the Q name instead of the CSQ name. We can also edit the location of the columns. Check this out here, a little edit. And we can take the skills, for example, and move them down one, save that. And now these skills will follow the calls presented. But we really don't want that, so let's go fix that back again. And we'll move skills back up one, a little save action. And now the skills and calls presented columns have been reversed. This customer is also interested in abandoned calls. So let's take a look down here a little bit, and we'll see some calls that are abandoned, average time to abandon, some other information about abandoned calls. He would like them all grouped together. So we'll just punch up this edit button up here, and we'll come down here to add a header. And adding a header, we'll call this abandoned calls. Now that we've added that header, it has shown up, and we'll move this up here a little bit so that we can get close to the abandoned call items in here, and we'll save this just for posterity. Open up the edit again, and we'll see that for the abandoned calls, we can move the current fields into that field, and we'll do that by highlighting it. Get a little green light. That's good. And we'll move about 5 of these abandoned types of report fields in here. And we can open that up and take a look and see what's going on. Calls abandoned, we'd like to move that up a little bit, so we'll just do that. And average time to abandon, we'll move that back up there. And we've pretty much got what we need there, so we'll do a save here. And as we run the report now, we've got a header that includes all the abandoned call information there for us. This customer is interested in the number of calls abandoned. Any number of calls over 8 abandoned, that customer would like to see this highlighted. So the 8 calls is a threshold. Let's go see if we can set up a threshold for abandoned calls. I'll pull down here to get in that category, abandoned calls, and right click on that to get us to thresholds. And thresholds are pretty cool. We can let us add a threshold. And in this particular case, if it's greater than 8 was their threshold criteria, we can place that in writing. We can change the text color, make that bright red, and click OK. And suddenly now, by clicking OK again and saving this report, we will find that that 11 now is a criteria over the threshold of 8, and sure enough, it is red. So we've created a threshold, and we have many different expressions that we can use in the thresholds in this reporting system. Most stock reports provided by Cisco for CUIC contain alternate views utilizing grids and charts and gauges. When we make a copy of those reports, the grids and charts and gauges that were originally part of the stock reports travel with that copy, and we can therefore modify the grids and charts and gauges and the views in those copied reports. Let's go take a look and see what that takes. Cisco makes available alternative views of these reports in the forms of grids, charts, and gauges. For example, here is a grid view of our report agent call summary test that we created and copied, and there are alternative views. If I poke up here at the little arrows over here, I see a menu for different types of views for the same information in this report. Let's look at average stock hold work time for inbound ACD, and we'll see that this is going to be a chart view. Very good. And over on the right side is the legend for this view, and it means that the green is the talk time and the orange is work time, and these are our 4 agents. Very nice little report. And these are the various views that are offered by default by Cisco for this particular report. Let's return back to the agent call summary report, which will give us the grid view. And now we're here in the grid view, and there's some things that this customer would like to customize. Number one, he doesn't care much about the extension for non-IPCC. And secondly, this customer never runs any outbound campaigns. Could we remove those and abbreviate this report a little bit for him? So we'll close this report, remembering what we want to do, and I'll right click on Agent Call Summary Test here and go to Edit Views. I see the pull down menu here now is where we're at. This is how we create different views for each of these reports. The report that we want to modify is the Agent Call Summary report. So let's click on that and hit Edit, and we will see on the right side here the current fields that are displayed for this report as of this time. And one of the fields that this customer does not want displayed is the extension non-IPCC agent, and we'll just remove that. And this customer does not have any outbound stuff going on, and we see there's a lot of things within that outbound, and we're going to remove all of that and remove that. It'll ask us, are we sure we want to do that? And of course we do. Why would we have done it otherwise? And here we'll remove the outbound on non-IPCC calls, and we'll confirm that that's what's happening. Here we have a chance to save, but we could do a save as, and the name of this will be the Agent Call Summary. And I'll just put no outbound. Alright, we'll click on OK on that. And sure enough, we have an Agent Call Summary, no outbound right here. We should be set to go. Let's go see what actually happened there. And from that point, we'll click on Reports again, Agent Call Summary Test, and of course it's going to run the way it ran before, and it'll show us the IPCC extension and the outbound information over here to the right. However, we can choose a different view now, and that's the one we just got through creating. Agent Call Summary, no outbound. Let's see what this report looks like when that is run. And sure enough, we no longer see the non-IPCC extension here. And over to the right, we no longer see anything for outbound calling. Additionally, we can change the order and sequence of these columns by using that same tool. Remember, you cannot do these kinds of visuals and changes on a stock report. It has to be a copied report. Now let's look at creating a gauge view. This customer is asking for a gauge to show abandoned calls. Here I'll run the Sales CSQ report in its normal way, and we'll see again, of course, the grid view. This customer is vitally interested in calls abandoned and would like to see a gauge to indicate that, and eventually he'll put that gauge on a dashboard. To create that gauge view, we'll right click on our custom stock report and select Edit Views. We'll create a new one here, and this is going to be a gauge, and the field that we're going to use is calls abandoned, and it will be called calls abandoned. and we see the various fields that we have available to us. So that's exactly what we want. We've selected that. And now the name for this will be Sales CSQ Calls Abandoned, and the description will be roughly the same, except we'll put a little 1 after that to keep from getting into trouble. Now, very nicely, they've created a little gauge for me up here, and that gauge range goes from 0 to 100, and that's not necessary, where you think we should just only go to 20. And by just changing that to 20, sure enough, we're 0 to 20. And number of scale markers is 10, and we have allowed half ticks to work with us there. Now, this is not a very pretty gauge the way I see it. So let's come down to the thresholds and determine what color the thresholds ought to be defined as. A critical threshold, a critical threshold might be something more than 15 calls that have been abandoned. A major threshold might be something more than 10 calls that have been abandoned, and a minor one might be more than 7 calls that have been abandoned, and a warning might be more than 4 calls that are abandoned. Making sure we get the levels checked here, and we reach up and take a look at the gauge now. That's kind of a pretty gauge. Everything here below 4 is okay. As we get up above 15, we're in trouble. So let's go ahead and save that. And we should be good to go here. So let's go to reports, sales CSQ, run that report, and then over here on the right side after the report runs is a grid. We should see a new report there. CSQ's abandoned 1. Let's punch that up and see if we don't get a gauge here that says there's been 11 calls. Sure enough, there's our gauge with 11 on it, and the range is from 0 to 20, and this is a gauge now that could be used in somebody's dashboard. Now let's investigate a view that incorporates pie charts. We have a customer who is interested in how calls are distributed across the agents, is interested in a pie chart to show the percentages of how those calls are distributed. We'll return to our agent call summary test and go ahead and run that and check out what information is available to us. And we don't see across here anything to do with a percentage that would provide the kind of information that this supervisor would like. So let's create a pie chart. We'll right click on Agent Call Summary Test and do an edit view here, and we'll create a new chart. The type of chart is going to be is a column chart, line chart, or a pie chart. It's going to be a pie chart this time. And we'll call this chart name Agent Distribution Percentage. Oh, chart perception there. We'll use the same thing. The accessible mode gives us fill patterns, stripes and dots and those kinds of things to make them a little easier to distinguish. We will show a legend, and we'll show that on the right side of the graphic. We'll set the maximum label length to 20. We'll let the data change effect just be interpolate, and we'll click next. Here we'll set what we would like. Here's the average holding time. But what we're really looking for is the total inbound ICD calls. So let's see if we can find that. Total inbound ICD calls. And we'll label the field by the agent name. We'll label the position as callouts, and the label format we're going to have is percent only, no values in it. Next, we come to an interesting green here. This is the chart preview area, and we'll do a little save and preview and check what happens here. We get a sample of what it is that we've configured. This is exactly what we want. We have the legend here on the right side, and we want the names and the percentages of the agents to be part of the pie chart. We're going to save and exit here. And presto, we've got a new choice here for the views. And that choice is agent distribution. Let's go see how that report runs now. We'll shut this business down. And we'll go to the agent call summary test, and we'll calmly run it. And once it gets run, we'll come over here and now we'll select a different view. Have we created a different view? You bet we did. This agent distribution is the view that we created. We expect to see a pie chart here. And sure enough, in the pie chart are our 4 agents and the distribution that they have for inbound ACD calls. So that's how we do pie charts. Bar charts are pretty similar. This report will retain the view, and next time it's called up, it will come up as a pie chart. That's all for now. This video should get you well on the way to customizing stock reports. Thank you for listening, and look for other videos in this series.